Good evening, everybody. I'm Steve Erickson. I'm the Executive Director of North Hennepin Area Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for coming to the candidate forum for the City Council. A lot of familiar faces here. It's our honor to work with the League of Women Voters, as we have for many years. This is a very important American enterprise, and we are proud to be a part of it. Thanks to the City of Maple Grove and for allowing us to use the City Council chambers. We promise not to make too much of a mess. Of course, unless the candidates start throwing things. I'm just kidding. If you thought we were going to make your job easier, you're wrong. We were here to make your job tougher. We've got outstanding people up here, and the choices will be challenging. I can guarantee you that. So we're delighted to be here and happy that you are as well. For the rest of the evening, we'll turn it over to our moderator from the League of Women Voters, Kirsten Chomey.
Thank you, Steve. Good evening. On behalf of the League of Women Voters in the North Hennepin Area Chamber of Commerce, I would like to welcome you to the Candidates Forum this evening. We are pleased to give you, the voters, the opportunity to get to know the men and women vying for your vote. Our number one goal is the community engagement of informed voters. We are so thankful that you have joined us. The League of Women Voters is an organization that is nonpartisan and volunteer-based. It is organized at the local, state, and national level to encourage citizens to participate in government. While the LWV members do study and take stands on issues, we do not endorse nor support political parties nor candidates. The LWV does encourage its members as individuals, as we encourage each of you, to get involved in your community and the political party of your choice. However, the views expressed in this forum are those of the individual candidates and not those of the League of Women Voters. By sponsoring this forum this evening, the League provides an opportunity for citizen participation and exposure to the candidates, but again does not provide an endorsement of any kind. All viable candidates were invited to participate this evening. And again, we are here for the City Council of Maple Grove. In tonight's forum, the candidates will start with their opening questions that they received in advance to prepare for tonight, in which they have 1 minute to speak. Then our candidates will have up to 30 seconds to respond to each of the questions that are coming from you, the audience. Finally, they will be given 1 minute for their final statements. Candidates, the League would like to request that you refrain from making any personal attacks on your fellow candidates. I'd like to take this moment to point out my timekeeper this evening. He will show you when you have 15 seconds, and then he will show you when your time has expired. Please finish your statement at that time, as I will be directing the next speaker's turn. The order has been randomly selected. I have an evil chart. Stay on your toes. Behave. Okay. And I do have a gavel if any of you start acting up, just so you know. Okay. Our ushers are handing out cards and pens as needed for your questions. Please raise your hand to receive a card from our usher or for the usher to collect it. And then we can get your questions asked. But we please ask you to follow these little guidelines as set by our partnership. Number 1, the question may not be a personal attack on any candidate. Number 2, the question may not have already been asked, but if we get similar questions, we might condense them into one. And number 3, please write legibly so we can actually read your questions and get them correct for our candidates. Audience, please also remember at this time to turn off or silence all communication devices at this time. Thank you. And our co-sponsors have all agreed that no unauthorized photography will take place during the forum, as it is distracting to our candidates. Remember, Channel 12 is broadcasting and rebroadcasting tonight's forum, and copies are available upon request to Channel 12. Our candidates this evening are Christy Barnett, Adam Bedard, Dan Brown, who is not here this evening, Jeffrey Drayton, Judith Hansen, and Sherry Marie Johnson. We will begin with the questions that you received in advance. So our first one is, please tell us about your background and previous city involvement that support your candidacy for this position. Our first speaker is Ms. Christy Barnett.
Hello. Thank you to the Chamber of Commerce as well as the League of Women Voters for having us this evening. I am a 12-year Maple Grove resident and currently live on Weaver Lake with my husband and Tibetan Terrier. I have a Bachelor of Science in Sociology, Political Science, and Social Work from the University of Minnesota, as well as a Master in Healthcare Administration, which is an MBA equivalent. I have a post-bachelor paralegal certificate, as well as a project management certificate. I've worked for a nonprofit, for a medium-sized company, a Fortune 500 company, and am now running my own communications consulting business here in Maple Grove. I am a long-standing member of the Junior League of Minneapolis. I'm a member of the North Hennepin Area Chamber of Commerce, as well as the Twin West Chamber of Commerce. I coach debate at Park Center High School, a District 279 school, and I'm passionate about improving the lives of people in my community. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Adam Bedard.
I too would like to thank the League and the Chamber for hosting this event. It's wonderful, and I think that the citizens will find it useful. I'm recommended by Senate District 34 as a candidate to vote for, and the same reason that I'm recommended, I'm going to talk about today in our qualifications, and that is that I'm a former council member. I served the city of Cuyuna for a number of years. That's up in the Brainerd Lakes area. We had a lot of success developing mountain bike trails that are now nationally recognized. Currently in this city, I'm involved in a number of different ways. I'm a Maple Grove Lions member. I'm the vice president of Maple Grove Days, or Maple Grove Community Organization, who puts it on. I formerly served on the Arbor Committee that reported up to the City Council, and I currently serve on the Citizens Advisory Committee that reports up to the City Council.
Thank you. Mr. Jeffrey Drayton.
Hello, my name is Jeffrey Drayton. I've been a Maple Grove resident for a little over 16 years. I was born and raised in Fargo, North Dakota. Shortly after high school, after I graduated high school, I joined the United States Army, where I served on active duty for 7 years. While on active duty, I participated in Operations Desert Shield and Desert Storm, so I'm also a Gulf War vet. I left military service in 1992, and I moved to the city of Minneapolis, where I attended the University of Minnesota, Twin Cities. I earned a bachelor's degree in music education. I've been a teacher in Woodbury, Minnesota, and later in Robbinsdale. I made a career change in 2011 to financial planning. I passed the Certified Financial Planner exam in July of 2014, and since that time I've had my own financial planning practice here in the city of Maple Grove. In addition to my professional life, I've also been a church choir director, a Sunday school teacher, Cub Scout den leader, parent volunteer over at Rush Creek Elementary School, and a youth soccer coach, among other things. It's my belief that both my background and my profession make me particularly well-suited to represent the people of Maple Grove on our city council.
Thank you. Ms. Judith Hansen.
Good evening, and I too also thank the League of Minnesota Women Voters and the Chamber for having us here, and all of you who have decided to come this evening. I really appreciate this opportunity for you to get to know all of us. My background is I've been on the City Council since August of 2015. I was appointed to fill the position of someone who had to step down. I'm also the City Council liaison to the Arbor Committee, and back in the mid to early 90s, actually I moved here in 1991 and actually started becoming involved in the city right away. I was on the Citizens Advisory Committee for 6 years, 2 years as a co-chair. Then I was on the Wetlands Task Force and the Comprehensive Land Use Update Task Force. My other community involvement involves being a Girl Scout leader. I have 3 grown children. I'm a coach for Special Olympics. I've participated in the polar plunge twice, something I never thought I would ever do. And I'm assistant city attorney for the city of St. Paul, and I've done so for 25 years.
Thank you. And Ms. Sherry Marie Johnson.
Okay, thank you, Chamber, and thank you, League of Women Voters. I became interested in land use issues 25 years ago when we purchased our home here in Maple Grove. And my mother also had a hobby farm. She loves horses, and I have a strong interest in earth sciences. And so we went to the city probably about 1993, and we were successful as a community neighborhood group in preserving some very beautiful land west of Vicksburg Lane. And then as time went on, I completed a Bachelor of Science degree through the University of Minnesota while raising my family. And I'm a grandma, and I'm a substitute teacher in Osseo, Maple Grove schools. I have run for city council before, and I think in the last election I received over 6,000 votes, and that was encouraging to me. I have a strong desire to serve my community, and so that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question. What are the most critical issues facing the city of Maple Grove over the next several years, and what policies will you support or initiate if elected to address these challenges? The first responder will be Ms. Johnson.
Okay. So you're asking about the critical issues facing the city in the future. What I think is that Maple Grove has a strong infrastructure and very quality development here in Maple Grove. And I think one of the biggest challenges will be to continue to provide a good quality infrastructure, but yet keep the taxes at a reasonable rate. Perhaps try to keep the taxes down in the future if possible. And I just think that'll be one of the biggest concerns.
Thank you. Ms. Barnett.
I believe smart growth is probably one of our biggest priorities. We need to maintain and to continue to expand an economic environment that encourages the private sector to come and stay in Maple Grove. We need to spur and oversee the tax base in a responsible manner for bringing an increase in funding to the city to support the growth of the population. This could be residential or commercial. The challenge of the council is in the future is to manage it in a logical and responsible manner. We need to ensure that we use common sense when using the taxpayers' money. It isn't the government's money, it's all of your money. We need to continually look for ways to make government services more efficient and effective. The second priority, I believe, is dealing with our traffic management. We need to provide proper maintenance and oversee growth of traffic infrastructure while anticipating increased usage. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hanson?
Okay, well, I have 6, and so I'm going to have to talk really fast. And I think these are essential to Maple Grove specifically. The first one would be the completion of 610. We had the ribbon cutting today where 610 Bridge is open to Interstate 94, but we still have to finish the rest of that, so that's a number 1 priority. We also have to complete the comprehensive plan by 2018, and so our focus is not only on the city overall, but in particular the gravel mining area and making sure that we have mindful development in that area, that we bring in some commercial and industrial and some high-density affordable housing. Also to implement the proactive economic development policy that was initiated this fall and we did that by hiring an economic director. And we want to retain the business that we have while bringing in new businesses. Attention to our lake and quality resources, public safety as our community grows, and the Emerald Ash Borer, educating our residents about tree removal and replacement. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bedard?
We're a city that's going to be growing for the next 20 years here, and so there's going to be a lot of changes that we'll see. Some of the more recent things, though, that I believe we need to continue to focus on is certainly as we grow, proper land management, preserving our parks, lakes, trails. The Highway 610 corridor, as that is completing, connecting to 94, we need to look at that for opportunities for job, business growth areas that will bring in high quality jobs to our citizens. Also, single-family housing units in that area. We've already seen some of that happen with the development of the enclave at Rush Creek and the Hy-Vee North that's coming in next to Target. I think also over here at Hemlock and Elm Creek Boulevard, we need to look at bringing in corporate organizations, continue our public safety, and I mean law enforcement and fire, to make sure that they have the proper tools needed to be proactive. And in addition to that, just being fiscally responsible with our budget and keeping our tax levy low.
Thank you. And Mr. Drayton?
I believe the most critical issues facing Maple Grove are fiscal responsibility, continued economic growth for our city. These are not the only issues that are facing our city, and as I speak to residents, I hear concerns regarding the care for our lakes and parks and concern for public safety, desire for continued investment in our city's infrastructure. However, in my opinion, all of these areas of concern hinge on Maple Grove's continued prosperity and ability to invest in itself. You know, in 2014, Money Magazine ranked Maple Grove #2 on its annual Best Places to Live survey. That same survey just came out, the 2016 version of it, about at the beginning of this month. And again, it's a Minneapolis suburb, it's #2. Unfortunately, this time it's Eden Prairie. Maple Grove isn't among the top 50. Is this a cause for concern? I think probably not. However, I do believe this. Whether you're talking about a business or an echelon of government or even a household, prosperity leads to prosperity and decline leads to decline. The further you travel down either of those two paths, the more they diverge and the more difficult it becomes to change the path that you are on. So I'd like to see us stay on the path of prosperity. And this is accomplished through fiscal responsibility and continued economic growth for our city.
Thank you. And our next question. Does Maple Grove need to provide scheduled intercity transit, especially for seniors and minors? How or why not? First responder is Mr. Drayton.
Yeah, you know, truthfully, I think the city does a pretty good job of intercity transit. We have 6 weekday routes that connect Maple Grove to Minneapolis and to the University of Minnesota. And if I recall correctly from speaking to Heidi Nelson, I think there was also an attempt, or has been an attempt, to connect Maple Grove to the southwest area of the metro. Something I'd love to see is a possibility of a better intra-city transit system. You know, twice in my life I've lived in Europe, once in Stuttgart, Germany, and then again in Switzerland. It's wonderful to have an efficient, well-functioning public transportation system available. Our system is so dependent on everybody having a personal automobile. That's not just challenging for the elderly and the young, but also for people who are just trying to gain an economic foothold in our economy. I recognize the challenges, though. Ridership usually pays for less than half of the cost of such a system, and you know, our geography just isn't conducive to that. Switzerland's a perfect example. The whole country is 1/5 the size of Minnesota. So it's something I'd like to see, and I think we should aspire to. I also recognize the challenges.
Ms. Hanson?
I would actually echo the comments of Mr. Drayton. And, you know, when you're looking at spending public funds for transit, you want to be really mindful of that. And currently, I think we have a good transit system with the Maple Grove buses, in addition to the transfer station. But it's expensive to run additional buses. I mean, it costs money for buses and for staff to drive those. And I think Maple Grove does a good job. I mean, I've taken the bus actually all the way to St. Paul by transferring downtown Minneapolis, and the express bus is pretty good. And in the city, we have a good program with the Dial-A-Ride. I think that services minors and seniors very well. I know that Maple Grove has also talked about adding maybe a feeder line to connect with the Bottineau light rail, and I think that would be a good idea. They have tried to do some intra-city services, but I don't know that the city is ready for that yet. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bedard?
I believe that we too have an excellent program in place here with our transit system. We have the Dial-A-Ride, we have the routes that are in place that have pickup and drop-offs at certain times. I would continue as we are today and work with the city on that. I don't think our population is to a point yet where it suits additional growth in public transit yet, or intercity transit, but certainly something that as we continue to grow over the years and as our population grows, we'll need to be looking at. I think another great thing that we're doing as a city, and this is in relation to public transit and land development, is a lot of our senior living facilities are located close to the amenities that they'd like to reach. And so continue focusing on that as well, so that they have access to our community center programs, our retail and shopping areas downtown.
Ms. Johnson?
Well, I'm certainly an advocate for pedestrian-friendly communities. I promoted that when I ran for state representative in 2000. But I do think that Maple Grove has a strong transit system here. We do have transit available for seniors and minors. And it's my understanding that there's Jefferson lines 3 times a day. Is that correct? I mean, that was my understanding, that we have Dial-A-Ride, and that when federal funding will become available, when there's a population, more of a population growth here, that would serve us all people. So,
thank you. Ms. Barnett?
I'd have to echo what Adam Bedard said. He took a lot of my words out of my mouth. When looking at the question, I'd have to admit up front, it sounds good, but when you think about it strategically and economically, it doesn't make a lot of sense. We do have great transit options available right now. As people have mentioned, Dial-A-Ride, the Jefferson lines, we also have Metro Mobility, and we have through the Met Council Transit Link. I think that as we grow, if the Transportation Commission brought a proposal to the table and I was a member of the City Council, I would listen, do the due diligence and research, and focus on the cost-benefit analysis of looking into that. But considering that we're an opt-out city where we provide our own buses, I think that adding those today would be a mistake. Thank you.
Our next question. Local businesses are taxpayers, but often not voting residents. In what way will you reach out to best understand their needs and provide for fair representation in city council decision-making? Our first responder will be Ms. Hanson.
Well, as a city council person, when I do go into a restaurant or a business, I do introduce myself if the business owner is available, because really it's about building good relationships with our business community. And in February of this past year, the city council and city staff sat down and developed a proposal of policies and programs for actually trying to connect not only with the business owners that we have and retaining them and understanding what their issues are, but also in trying to recruit new business into the city. And in fact, we did go ahead and hire an economic development director, and she rolled out a plan just this past fall, which set up a really good program for going out and meeting with the various business owners, giving them a welcome packet, trying to connect them with all of the different resources that are available in the city, the Rotary, the Chamber, those types of things. So I think we've done a good job.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson?
Well, I would reach out to the business community by attending some of the Chamber of Commerce events. And I have talked with business owners. I know some business owners in the community, and I would listen to their needs, and then I would take action and try and promote their interests.
Thank you. Ms. Barnett?
Like Ms. Hanson said, one of the city goals is to create a proactive economic development program to address the retention, expansion, and recruitment of industry in Maple Grove, and we've already hired an economic development manager to oversee this. I think that will play a big role in reaching out to the businesses. The reality is local businesses are important to our local economy, and the council needs to support them and provide resources for the businesses to thrive. They may not have a vote, but they do have a voice, and they can come to city council meetings and express their voices and their opinions and be heard. They have every right to attend as a citizen would and share their views. We need to value their voices just like we would residents. If there are issues that are impacting local business, then the council should make outreach efforts to figure out what those are. We can also work with groups like the North Hennepin Area Chamber of Commerce to find out what the businesses need. I know several of the council members are members of the chamber, as well as I am, and if I were to be elected to city council, I would use them as a resource as well.
Thank you. And Mr. Bedard?
Continuing to work with the current city council will be important. Our city council members, all the way up to our mayor, interact with the businesses quite often, and so forming that relationship is really important. There's a number of other ways to do that as well. The Chamber, Maple Grove Lions, there's a lot of business owners within that group that I interact with. And in addition to that, when I participate in Maple Grove Days, there's a number of businesses that we bring into the community that are also residents here. And so interacting with them, or if they're non-residents that are still coming in but own some sort of a business here, being able to interact, understand what their needs and wants are, and continuing to work with our staff too. Our staff is very heavily involved, from everything to when a new business is going up with permits, and understanding their needs and concerns. That's a good place to turn to.
Thank you. We're now moving on to the questions from the audience.
I didn't get a chance to answer that question. I've got an answer.
I scribbled you out accidentally. I'm sorry, I scribbled you out completely accidentally. Please speak, Mr. Drake.
Oh, thank you. And I like the question because I think you could scarcely come up with a more American argument than one that says that if there's taxation, then there should be representation. I don't anticipate that it would be a challenge for me to understand the needs of businesses in that I am a member of the North Hennepin Area Chamber, and I'm a business owner myself. I recognize, I think there's a political ilk that would somehow have you believe that the needs of businesses and the interests of businesses somehow sit in opposition to that of the people. I kind of call that the zero-sum mentality. If I'm winning, somebody else must be losing, or vice versa. Fortunately for me, I don't believe that's the mentality of the people of Maple Grove, and it's certainly not what I believe. Actually, I believe quite the opposite. I believe that the economic prosperity of our city's businesses are inherently tied to the well-being of our residents. They're not at all mutually exclusive. So I'm always going to be seeking to understand the needs of businesses, as I feel that their success is critical for the success of the people of Maple Grove.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to our 30-second questions from the audience. First question is, do you believe the city's taxes are too high? Why or why not? First responder is Mr. Bedard.
I believe the city is doing an excellent job with sticking to their budget and being fiscally responsible. When you look at the tax levy that is being proposed, which is 3%, that is low compared to the communities around us. Communities like Plymouth that are promoting 5 to 6% tax levy, and communities like Edina that are doing the same. So I think we're doing a really good job, and I commend the current city council for doing that.
Thank you. Mr. Drayton.
Well, I think that the barometer that we should be comparing ourselves to is what is the rate of inflation. And I don't think we've had a rate of inflation above 2% in the last half decade. So if the city's budget is increasing faster than that, I certainly think that the city owes the residents an explanation. That said, as we continue to invest in our infrastructure and grow our tax base, it would be nice to see that tax base, that growing tax base, allow for some property tax relief for the people of our city.
Ms. Johnson?
Well, currently I think the property taxes are, reasonable for what people do receive in amenities here in Maple Grove, but I've heard from several of the business owners that, this is a viable economic community to do business, but that the business taxes are high for people here. So.
Okay. Ms. Barnett?
I believe we need to remember that the city of Maple Grove only receives 26% of the property taxes we take in, which isn't a lot in my opinion. I do agree with Adam that a 3% increase is not a lot. I do believe though if taxes go up, then our services need to go up as well and make sure that they're really quality. But I think by expanding our tax base, by bringing in more commercial business, will soften the blow for everybody in Maple Grove.
And Ms. Hanson?
I don't think our taxes are too high. No one wants to really pay taxes, but it's just kind of the way life is. The city has done a very good job at keeping our levy at 3% or less over the last several years. And I think that speaks very highly of not only the government officials, but also of city staff. And besides that, just as Ms. Barnett said, it isn't just the city's taxes, but it's also the school district in Hennepin County.
Thank you. Our next question, why did you choose to run for this office? Can you give an example of something that motivated you to seek this office? First responder is Ms. Johnson.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I guess as a young girl, I grew up northwest of Plymouth, New Hope area, and I played in open space. And so I became interested in land use as a young girl, I guess. And I played in a one-room schoolhouse, and then that went away, and the rolling hills. And so I developed that interest. I guess my dad always had the Minnesota Volunteer magazine on the coffee table and the National Geographic. And then when we purchased our home, it was only 5 miles from where I grew up. But my mom had a hobby farm, and then there was talk about the city water and sewer extension services, and they were concerned about the costs.
Thank you.
Yeah. So.
Ms. Hanson.
Public service has been not only a career choice, but a way of life for me. I've always volunteered. I believe that the world is run by those who show up and those who engage and participate in their community. That's always been very important to me, and I've demonstrated that in all of the different things I've been involved in.
Mr. Drayton?
Well, as I said, I've been a resident of the city for 16 years, and it's where I'm going to continue to reside. This is where my life is going to take place in the city of Maple Grove. It's where I've raised my kids. I want to be a steward of this city. I want to make sure that they have the same Maple Grove when they're my age that I've enjoyed. I want it to be just as clean, just as pristine, just as well cared for at that time as it is now.
Mr. Bedard?
I could tell you about my motivation to be a part of the council because my grandfather was a mayor of Crosby Ironton. I have family members who are part of the Minnesota Senate or the House of Representatives. And I do want to be a steward to this community, but really what drove it home for me and why I became so involved in community was that when I was younger, I was diagnosed with cancer not once but twice. The community came together, supported my family fiscally, mentally in a number of different ways. It wasn't expected, but it was a blessing, and because of that, I feel responsible to give back to the community.
Thank you. And Ms. Barnett?
I've always been passionate about community service and been involved. The last 2 years, I've served on the Weaver Lake Area Conservation Association, and right now as their vice president. I see a seat on the city council as an extension of that. I believe Maple Grove is a great city. My husband and I have chosen to make this our permanent home, and I have great respect for the people who are on the council. Before I decided to make a run, I met with several of them as well as the city administrator to make sure that I thought I could work with these people and that my ideas and leadership styles would work well, and I believe that they do.
Thank you. Our next question. What opportunities do you see for Maple Grove with the completion of Highway 610? First responder is Ms. Barnett.
There are lots of opportunities with the completion of 610. Mostly I see a lot of commercial opportunities. It will allow more businesses to want to locate within that northwest corner of Maple Grove, and it'll provide access to people who don't live in Maple Grove, but to come and visit and spend their tax dollars by eating, drinking, and shopping within our city.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson?
Yeah, I agree, and I think that it'd be nice if there was a drop-off daycare center, maybe at the community center in the evening or the weekends for a few hours, and then people could go out to dinner, and it's just something I thought about before and promoted. But yeah, I think that the completion of 610 will allow for more business opportunities. I wouldn't want to live next to it, though, right next to it. Be hard.
Ms. Hanson?
I think it's critical that we complete 610 as part of our development plan throughout the city. It will bring in more jobs and more industry and more businesses, but it also helps all of the residents get from one place to another, and it will help reduce some of the congestion around the city.
Mr. Drayton?
Yeah, well, I'd echo the other candidates. It's better economic growth, and Maple Grove has done such a nice job of developing the retail space, hospitality space, just having better access to our city for those who don't live in our city and are trying to take advantage of the amenities that we have, and also for our residents to get to their jobs that might be outside of Maple Grove limits.
And Mr. Bedard?
I agree. Here, with the completion of 610, it's going to bring in more job opportunities. We're already seeing that happen with the Hy-Vee North, Park Nicollet at the Grove, AutoZone. Not only is it going to bring in businesses, but it will allow us to develop up and north into the Drayton area. So we're already seeing some of that. Again, I mentioned before the enclave at Rush Creek is going in, and I think we'll continue to see some housing development that way.
Thank you. Our next question. What will you do to protect the environment, including the aquifer that lies below our city? First responder is Mr. Bedard.
Well, I think the important thing is that I'm not in knowledge with everything in the city. It's impossible to be the expert on everything. And so I think it's going to be important that we work with the experts that are currently on our staff who help and manage our land use, our water use here. Work with our lake associations, work with FLARA, which is a big association here that helps out in a number of different lakes and preserving our quality of water there. And I think interacting in projects as well with the DNR.
Thank you. Ms. Barnett?
I would agree working with our different lake associations would be a good first step, as well as the DNR. I too don't have all the answers or information, but it's something that I would put my research skills to use and work with the different commissions and boards that the city council has and come up with the answers that we need.
Ms. Johnson?
Yeah, I guess I would probably strongly encourage the city council or the city to look at some other cities and what they're doing to preserve or protect the water quality. And it's my understanding that there are some lakes in Maple Grove that are impaired. And recently I met with a person from Flora and the Fish Lake area, and it's my understanding that they're successfully working with the city of Maple Grove on finding ways to find funding to help repair that lake.
Thank you. Ms. Hanson?
I would echo everything that has been said, but I think one of the things we really need to focus on is our water quality. I too met with the gentleman that was the representative of FLARA, and there is some concern about phosphorus in Fish Lake, and I think we need to deal with that. Some other lakes have had to deal with some invasive species, and I think because our lakes are our assets, we really need to pay attention to them and help residents who live around there deal with those. Also, with the threat of emerald ash borer, we need to educate the residents and educate the residents in terms of pollutions that could go into our stormwater sewers. Thank you.
And Mr. Drayton?
Well, I certainly think we have some challenges. You know, when I moved to this city 16 years ago, I'd moved from the city of Minneapolis, and I remember we have a family cabin up in Detroit Lakes. I remember we would always say we're going to fill up with gas as soon as we get out of town, and we'll fill up in Maple Grove. And of course, that's no longer true. The city's grown a lot in 16 years. It's probably got about another, as Mr. Bedard said, 16 to 20 years to go. We're going to have to be aware of runoff, phosphorus in our lakes, the invasive species. Like I say, we need to be good stewards of our city.
Next question. How would you assess and support police outreach to the community? First responder is Mr. Drayton.
Well, I think probably if there's one issue that people really identify, it's public safety and supporting our first responders. So I certainly hear that, and I do my best to always try to understand what their needs are, defer to their expertise, and support them in providing that public safety to our residents.
Mr. Bedard?
I echo what Mr. Drayton said there. We need to continue to be proactive with assisting our fire and police, make sure that they have the tools and skills needed to proactively, I guess, move forward with any challenges that they might be facing. And with that, I think the current council does an excellent job as well. Thank you.
Ms. Barnett?
I agree that we need to maintain and provide proper resources for first responders. I think connecting our first responders to the neighborhoods is a good idea. I know it's being done through crime prevention programs and National Night Out, but keeping the communication lines going between both the citizens, the city council, and the neighborhoods with the first responders is probably the best way. Thank you.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes, if I was elected to city council, I would certainly promote strong public safety, and it seems like the city does a good job with that with the police department, goes into the schools and gets to know the students, and the police officers are oftentimes in the neighborhoods and talking with the people. So.
And Ms. Hanson?
Well, this is an issue that's really near and dear to my heart, being a city attorney in St. Paul. Unfortunately, I think there's a lot of mistrust these days with law enforcement officers, and I think that's really unfortunate. And I think here in Maple Grove, that's not necessarily the case, and I think the things that they have going now are the Safe Streets units. I think those are very good. Officers walking, biking to get to know people so that they can start building that trust. The DARE program is an outstanding program that we have here in Maple Grove, and the liaison officers in schools building relationships with students.
Thank you. Next question. What unique perspective or qualification would you bring to the council? First responder is Ms. Hanson.
Well, to kind of build on what I just said, having been a city attorney for 25 years, I think I bring a unique perspective than maybe the other candidates don't have. I was a prosecutor for many years, so I really support law enforcement. Currently, I'm a litigator where I represent law enforcement officers, so that's really where my heart is. But I also worked as a general counsel and represented many different departments in the city, so I think I have a unique perspective on how governments run and what the citizens need.
Thank you. Mr. Drayton.
Well, you know, as a financial planner, I sit down with people every day and really get just a open look into things that are very near and dear to their heart, which is their personal finances. One of the first things I'm going to look at is their tax returns, and you really see that these are real dollars to people that genuinely affect their lives, and therefore I think that perspective will help me be a good steward with public money. It's not the city's money; it's the residents of Maple Grove, and just making sure that it receives the oversight that it deserves.
Mr. Bedard.
I think there are three unique things that I would bring to the council, and one of those is that I work as a senior financial analyst for Prudential's corporation. I and a team of 18 others manage $11 billion in expenses annually. So I feel like being fiscally responsible is something that I could tackle. My passion for wanting to be a part of the community with my experience of going through cancer and seeing community come together and form a strong bond that way. And in addition to that, I'm here to listen to the citizens. I value your opinions, thoughts, and ideas.
Ms. Barnett.
I believe that I have a very unique background in the sense that I'm well educated in a broad spectrum of things between project management, business, and paralegal studies. I also have unique work history in that I've worked for businesses of all sizes and now work for myself. So I bring a new perspective, fresh ideas to the table that someone without my experience and education wouldn't necessarily have.
And Ms. Johnson.
Yeah, thank you. If elected to the City Council, I will be a voice for the residents and the business entities here. I will listen to your ideas and concerns, and I'll see that they're properly addressed. And my heart is vested in the city. And as a teacher, I also have a lot of patience, so, that helps. And I have a lot of ideas. I do have some good ideas. I don't know how realistic they are, but I know I have good ideas. They seem to come to fruition about 20 years down the road, though. So.
Our next question. Should Maple Grove pursue a major corporate office tenant to locate their headquarters here? And if so, how would you encourage that? First responder is Ms. Barnett.
I believe we already are trying to do that and have been competing with cities such as Denver, which shows just what a great place Maple Grove is. I think with the new economic development manager, that is how we would definitely pursue bringing those types of businesses here to Maple Grove.
Mr. Bedard.
I certainly think a corporate campus here is important. It brings in high quality jobs for our citizens. I think an ideal location is Hemlock and Elm Creek Boulevard. Not only does it bring in high quality jobs, it provides an excellent tax basis for our community here. And the benefit of the organization will be there near the highways such as 694, 94, and the completion of 610 that will allow other individuals to come and work here.
Mr. Drayton.
Well, I certainly think so, and we do have some large corporations. We have Boston Scientific represented, Upshur Smith. I agree with Mr. Bedard. It increases our tax base, brings in high-quality jobs. I think something that we need to do to make ourselves welcoming to city corporations such as that is things that we have already done. We have a wonderful city for them to locate in. They look for places where where their workers are going to want to live, where there would be high quality workers to employ, and I think Maple Grove has that to offer.
Ms. Hanson.
I would support bringing in a corporate campus, particularly into the gravel mining area. And the reason for that is because it would help build the tax base. It would provide for good jobs. And then there would be a ripple effect because the folks that would work in those, in that corporate campus would build homes, would spend their money here, and all those things help build the tax base. So I would be supportive of that.
And Ms. Johnson?
Yes, I also would be supportive of the corporate campus, preferably in the gravel mining area for the tax base and jobs.
Thank you. Our next question. The city is currently reviewing its comprehensive land use plan. What input do you have for this review? First responder is Ms. Johnson.
Okay. I would need to do some more research on that. Honestly, I could not give you an educated guess about the comprehensive land use plan at this time. I just know that years ago, you know, that there were lots of concerns due to the sensitivity of the many natural amenities that we have here, but I'm confident that the people who are hired here at the city are doing a good job.
Ms. Hanson?
Well, the comprehensive land use plan looks at the city more globally in terms of its parks and trails, affordable housing, and water. And so those are things that we always have to update every 10 years. It's a directive that we have from the Met Council. But in particular, when we deal with the gravel mining area, I think that's a place where we want to focus in terms of bringing in industry and commercial and that corporate campus that we talked about, and maybe even some high-density housing. I think we do have some affordable housing, but I think we could do a better job and maybe put some more into that area.
Ms. Barnett?
The comprehensive plan is already, update process is already happening, and I know that an early focus is the gravel mining area and the 610 corridor, looking to look at for the desired use for those lands, for how to use them for transportation, for parks. I believe that, you know, we need to get the community engaged in this as well to see where they feel updates are needed, and then, you know, establish timelines for those milestones.
Mr. Bedard?
I believe that the comprehensive plan is well balanced. We have over in the gravel mining area a balance of bringing in corporate job opportunities, some high density housing. In the 610 corridor area, we're looking at single family housing developments. We're looking at bringing in some more businesses. In that plan, it also talks about how we're preserving our parks, lakes, trails, and developing some of that as our communities continue to grow. So I think we're doing an excellent job, and we need to continue moving that forward.
Mr. Drayton?
Well, I'd echo a lot of what's already been said, just continuing to maintain a balance between residential and commercial development, making sure that the residential development isn't overly dense, and that we always focus on maintaining excuse me, a certain amount of green spaces, which I think we've done a nice job, but you know, we were speaking recently about maintaining the quality of our parks and water quality and such things, and just making sure that we're growing at a pace that we can maintain.
Okay. Speaking of that, what is your vision for Fish Lake and the other bodies of water in Maple Grove? First responder is Mr. Drayton.
Well, like I said earlier, I think, you know, I talk about fiscal responsibility a lot, and just being good stewards with public dollars. You know, as we at a national level, we sit here with a close to $19 trillion debt and an incredible sum of money, and what we're doing to our children and burdening them with that. Well, I think we have an environmental responsibility as well, and that we pass on to our children in Maple Grove that is the same Maple Grove that we had, and not a city with lakes filled with invasive species and polluted waters.
Ms. Barnett?
I think as Vice President of the Weaver Lake Conservation Association, I have a good understanding of Fish Lake's needs. I know that they're working really hard to get Al-Anon treatment that would help their lake significantly, and it's something that Weaver Lake is also very interested in. I think that Fish Lake is leading the way for the other lakes within Maple Grove, and providing an environment where we can try to all work together on the lakes, because we all have the same issues regarding invasive species and, trying to manage the resources with an eye to the future.
Ms. Hanson?
Would you mind reading the question again, please? Thank you.
What is your vision for Fish Lake and the other bodies of water in Maple Grove?
Well, in particular with Fish Lake, I did meet with a gentleman that talked about the phosphorus that was affecting the clarity in that lake. And I know that they have a plan that they'd like to bring forward to the city, where the city would contribute some money. And again, I think we need to be careful about how much money we would contribute towards that. As far as the other lakes, I know that I think it was Edward Lake that had problems with bullheads, and they were very creative, and they brought in some sporting fish that could take care of that issue. But I would support, because I think our lakes are one of our best amenities, I would support helping keep the water quality.
Thank you. Mr. Bedard?
We certainly need to continue to be environmentally responsible as we grow as a city, and it will be important to maintain our lakes, our parks, our trails here. That's one of the reasons that we live here. I think that we need to work and continue to make sure that our lakes are clean. This means that we need to work on proactively avoiding invasive species, and this can be done by working with FLARA, the DNR, and Three Rivers Park District.
And Ms. Johnson?
Yes, I am in support of improved water clarity in our lakes. And also in my neighborhood, we have some trumpeter swans, and they're pretty neat. They're in a pond, but I did notice that there's quite a bit of green algae over there, and it just seems like they're swimming in a green algae swamp, and hope that improves.
Our next question. Do you support the city funding for an arts center in Maple Grove? Why or why not? First responder is Ms. Hanson.
Yes, I do. And in fact, the city did already approve a $2,000 grant. I think anything that makes a city good includes arts and performing arts. I think that's what makes our city great. And in fact, I would even go so far as to say that I'd like to see us even go further with that and include some other arts and entertainment in Maple Grove, similar to the Yellow Tree in Osseo.
Mr. Drayton?
Well, I have a background in the arts and certainly a passion for that. It's hard, sometimes some questions are a little hard to speak of in the hypothetical. You'd want to know what the details are and what's being asked of the city. Certainly we want to enrich our community. At the same time, to what degree is this going to be done at public expense, and what's just the cost-benefit analysis? So.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes, I am in support of the arts. I just spent this past weekend in Lanesboro with my daughter. It was just lovely. It's just a beautiful artistic community, and I think that the more arts we have in the community, the better off we'll be. So,
Ms. Barnett?
I think that the city can't be all things to all people, and while the arts are very valuable, I think that we can grow our arts in Maple Grove through other ways, seeking grants from foundations. There are many foundations all over the country who would just love to fund art-related projects. If the city decided to participate as a partner, that would be something I'd be open to exploring, but I do believe we need to look at the cost-benefit analysis of doing that. As I said, we can't be everything to everyone.
And Mr. Bedard?
I think the arts are an important part of the community. However, I do think that we need to look at the costs and benefits of an arts center here, and in regards to that, what are we talking about as far as a cost to our citizens? One of the things that I will make note of is that certainly could be supportive of it if they're willing to contribute money themselves. Our sports organizations like football and basketball contribute a large amount to their stadiums that they currently have. So is the Arts Center willing to contribute a large amount as well to help fund their cause?
Our next question. What is your understanding of the Met Council and its impact on the city of Maple Grove? Are you aware of their future plans that impact our city? Please explain. First responder is Ms. Johnson.
I am not aware of what the Met Council's future plans are, but I know that we're concerned about the city water and sewer extension, and that's something that I need to research and do my homework on that. So,
Mr. Bedard?
Well, the Met Council currently has a 2040 plan out there. It talks about how we need to make access to job opportunities, which we are doing, and we are continually growing. Use of our land patterns for potential impacts, and this means preserving our parks, lakes, trails here. I think we have a council that is strong in doing that. Reducing our air pollution, stormwater runoff. I think those are all things that, again, contribute to our lake quality, our quality of life here in the city. We're working hard towards that. The only thing that in that plan that I would be hesitant of is they really are encouraging additional growth of public transit, and I believe that now is not the time.
Thank you. Ms. Barnett?
You know, the Met Council always seems to have a lot of plans, and sometimes they help us, and sometimes I feel like they're being forced upon us. And I think as a city, we need to balance what's right for our city versus what the Met Council wants. There are some opportunities for partnerships, such as environmental aspects, but like Adam said, you know, forced of the public transit isn't necessarily what's right for our city.
Mr. Drayton?
Yeah, well, you know, the Met Council, I believe it's a 17-member board. They're appointed by the governor. They're not elected officials, and they have some powers that supersede those of local governments. So, yeah, I have concerns with the Met Council, especially, you know, I don't think that necessarily the values that our governor has are kind of best reflected by the people of Maple Grove, and therefore to have a body that has superseding powers over, at times, the city council is concerning.
Thank you. And Ms. Hanson?
I would echo what's been said. What I know about the Met Council, it's a regional plan so that there's some guidelines. They're not laws, but they're guidelines for parks and transportation, housing and water services, and for planning growth regionally throughout all the counties. But I do think that Maple Grove has done a very good job with its staff and city politicians in planning for our growth, and we're doing that right now and updating our comprehensive land use plan. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to move on to our final question, in which you have 1 minute to respond. In summary, how do you intend to best serve this city and move it forward? We will go in the reverse order in which we started, so we will begin with Sherry Marie Johnson.
oh, thank you. I would strongly encourage a voter's information guide. I think that would be helpful for people to really see how their elected members are voting at their city level. And that would go to all residents. And if I was elected to city council, I will be a voice for the residents, and the business entities, and I would collaborate with the city, and I would uphold high standards and values and listen to your ideas and concerns and see that they are properly addressed. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And Ms. Judith Hanson?
Well, in listening to everyone tonight, I think we all kind of want the same thing for Maple Grove. We want responsible spending of your tax dollars, responsiveness to residents, and making good decisions for Maple Grove. I think what stands me apart is that I've been doing the work of City Council for over a year, but I haven't been doing it so long that I don't bring a fresh perspective. As a city attorney, I have the knowledge and experience about issues that face cities, and from many different perspectives, so I think that sets me apart. I've also been actively involved in this community for the last 25 years, and public service is a personal calling.
Thank you. Mr. Jeffrey Drayton?
I intend to best serve Maple Grove going forward by diligently focusing on fiscal responsibility and continued economic growth for our city. This is fundamental. It's not that I view these as Maple Grove's only two concerns. I too want to support our local officials in public safety. I want to cooperate with District 279 and 284 to help them in their mission to ensure that our schools are among the best in the nation. I want to treat our parks, lakes, and green spaces with a level of stewardship that will ensure that we don't just pass on to our children the Maple Grove that we enjoy, but one that is even more beautiful, more pristine, and well cared for. But I know this, every city wants that. And the ones that fail don't do so by choice. They get there as a result of mismanagement, by overextending themselves and losing sight of not what it is that they desire, but the means by which to achieve it. Focus on prosperity, and the means to achieve those things that you most cherish and desire will always be at your disposal. So my tenure as councilman will be focused on that.
Thank you. Mr. Adam Bedard?
I will continue to listen to the citizens. I value your thoughts, opinions, ideas, concerns. I will be fiscally responsible with our budget, again, keeping those taxpayer levies low. Work with our city council and staff to continue to understand needs of not only citizens but businesses as well. And we need to continue working with legislatures to understand the impacts of bills passed within the state and federal level to understand how they'll impact Maple Grove. I'll continue my work on the Maple Grove Days, being a Maple Grove Lions member, and from that also attract high-quality job opportunities to this community. I think is important, bringing in some corporate campuses.
Thank you. And Ms. Christy Barnett?
I'm not a politician. I am a person who provides service to the community that I live in. The city has a motto that is serving today, shaping tomorrow, and I believe that I take that to heart with everything that I do and all the activities I'm involved in. I'm just a local citizen with a varied background, but I know what it takes to be successful. I'll lead with courage without worrying about the next election. I pledge to represent the people of Maple Grove with honor and honesty, but keep an open mind and do the research to make the tough decisions that will keep us fiscally responsible. I believe I have the right priorities with my fiscal responsibility, public safety, smart growth, traffic management, and lake quality dedication to those issues. With 2 open seats, it would be my pleasure to serve the community of Maple Grove with those that are already on the council and the various boards and commissions that are in place. I'd like to build upon the great work that's already being done in Maple Grove, and I'd also like to thank everybody for attending and watching on television tonight.
Thank you. Once again, on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Brooklyn Park, Osseo, Maple Grove, and the North Hennepin Area Chamber of Commerce, I would like to thank the candidates for agreeing to participate in tonight's forum. I would also like to thank the voters for attending and participating by submitting their questions, and I would like to thank the viewing audience as well. Remember that if we could not get to your question tonight, or if you have further questions for the candidates, we invite you to contact them directly with your concerns. Please remember to get out and vote on or by Tuesday, November 8th, as in this election, your vote truly counts. Thank you and have a wonderful evening.